Okay, this video is going to cover the newly released RetroPie version 3 beta 3, which came out on 10th of June 2015. So it's just booting up now. You saw the new RetroPie logo a minute ago. It looks much cleaner, really nice, quite tidy logo there as it boots up. And we're in Emulation Station as usual, and it's asking us to configure the gamepad. Now in RetroPie 3 beta 3, this bit is significantly different. It looks exactly the same, but when you type in or press your joypad buttons to log the joypad, the RetroPie process in the background will not just configure Emulation Station to understand your joypad, but also it'll write the files to the RetroArch installation and some other emulators, but mainly the RetroArch installation, which means that you don't have to separately try to configure the RetroArch controller. It should automatically do it, which means you can effectively configure your controller here and then go straight into the games, because the games, or the RetroArch ones at least, will know about your controller. So it makes things a lot easier in some ways. There are a couple of possible quirks which I'll cover in a minute, but basically here you just press the buttons on your controller. So I've plugged in an iBuffalo USB controller that looks very much like a SNES controller, and that's the one I tend to use quite a lot. So here I'm just going to hold one of the buttons down. I've also got a keyboard plugged in, but I'm not going to touch that. So I'm holding down one of the buttons, and you see there the name of it appears, the USB 2-axis 8-button pad, blah blah blah, and configure it here. So this already looks slightly different, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to press D-pad, well, just follow the instructions there, up, down, left, right, start, select, A, B, X, Y, and it's got here left bottom, left top, right top, and I think I'm right in saying that the normal shoulder buttons are actually left bottom and right bottom. Even though they're at the top of the joypad, it's the left bottom and right bottom you want. I hope that makes sense, but yeah, that's what they are. Say left bottom, right bottom. Now I don't have any more buttons, so I don't have a left top, right top, left thumb, or any of these other ones. So to skip it, previously when you configured the RetroArch side at least, you had to press buttons pretty quickly, but now you can take as long as you want, which is much better. And if you want to skip a button, like it says at the top there, just hold the button, any button, and it will skip it. I'll show you that in a sec. So just a reminder, the stage that we're doing now, configuring it for Emulation Station, that used to be just for Emulation Station, but it's not anymore. It will also do the RetroArch side, so this is a little bit different there. So I'm holding down a button, and you see it changes, hold for 1 second, skip, 0 seconds, skipped it. So I'm just going to do that. And you can see for each one it recognises that I'm holding something, gives me a second to make sure I mean to hold it, and then carries on and skips the configuration for that. And again, these buttons aren't needed for Emulation Station, but RetroArch and the games that you play do need these buttons logged if you've got them on your controller. I don't, so I'm just skipping them, just running through there. There's only a couple more, I think. There we go, last one. Oh, didn't hold it long enough. There we go. Then it takes you to the OK button. On the OK button, tap A on the joypad, which is in Emulation Station the sort of accept or go forward button generally. And nothing happens immediately, but don't panic, just wait a couple of seconds. It's just doing stuff in the background, so don't press anything more, just wait a bit. There we go, and now you're into Emulation Station as normal. So that is pretty similar, but it's done more in the background to configure RetroArch for you. Now if I scroll across to Mega Drive, the only thing I've done on this build is add one ROM. Besides that, it's completely stock, haven't touched a thing. So we've got the standard Emulation Station view here, and I've got Mega Drive in here, and if I go in there, I've got one ROM. Now I'll go in here and show you how it looks, although you'll be pretty familiar with it. And watch at the bottom of the screen when I press the A button to carry on. When it gets into the game, you'll see a little bit yellow text, which means that it's recognised my controller, and it's done that because of what we've just configured. Now, previously in RetroArch, the configuration directory, it already had a load of these configuration files anyway, so some people would have had that appear anyway, but if you've got a slightly obscure controller, it's just going to mean it will work straight off the bat, and you can tell when it goes into the game. We should see at the bottom, there we go, yellow text at the bottom of the screen, flashes up. Just pause the video if you want to read it, and it's got the name of the driver, I think, of the controller. It's not the name of the file that it opens, it's just that that file. So I'm in Sonic. Now if I press start, it's got my buttons already configured. Now I can't move left or right, which you could say is a bit of a problem, and I'll show you why that is. It might not happen to you in your controller, but I'll show you why it happens here, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but there aren't really many options to go wrong, so I think something might need to change slightly here. But like I say, you might not find this problem because it might be controller specific, but I'll show you how to get around it anyway. Yeah, so my buttons are working and my left, right, up, down, the D-pad basically isn't working. I can still quit out of it because by default it's programmed down a hotkey for me. So to do that I just hold down select, which is my enable hotkey, and I know that a hotkey to quit a game is start. So hold down select, tap start there, and it quits out of that for me pretty cleanly, and it'll take me back to Emulation Station. There we go. So I press B to get back there. So whilst we're in Emulation Station, just have a quick look at changes, and largely it's very similar, but in the RetroPie menu there is a new option there, configure Wi-Fi. That could be really useful if you want to make sure that you're networked without any cabling, and it can just follow. I haven't selected this, but I imagine it just takes you through standard wizard and is pretty easy to configure, so that would be a lot easier than having to edit text files manually. So that's one extra option there, but I think the rest of the enhancements I'll probably show you in a command line. Now there is one section which the changelogs mention. In Emulation Station you should have a new theme. This theme that's running in the background, or the whole sort of GUI here, is called Simple, and they've added one called, I think it's called Color Pie, and you can change themes. Press start and go to UI settings, and then down here we've got theme sets. It says Simple. If I press A, I've got a choice between Simple and Simple, but there should be another one there called Color Pie. There isn't. I've looked on the files and I can't see it there, so maybe I'm missing something, but I can't see it's added. So although it's in the changelogs, I'm not sure how to get to it. Yeah, besides that, that's pretty much all the differences in the front end. The main key benefit really here is the fact that when you boot up, you can now configure your joypad, and it will apply to RetroArch games. And RetroArch emulators are like, say, Pika Drive that runs the Mega Drive and Sega Master System, or another Nestopia for the NES. Most of them are libretro, and I'll show you in the back end in a minute. In the terminal session you can see what's going on there. We'll just cover a few more details, but that's pretty much it. So now I'll quit out of this and get into a terminal session. You can do that, press start, and if you choose quit and quit Emulation Station, it'll pop up on the screen. Really quick, and it pops up on the screen there. It's going to reboot back into Emulation Station unless you press a key on the keyboard. That's just if you copy some ROMs across, you want to quickly get back in Emulation Station, or you make a small change, you just want to check it out. It saves having to log back in. But just tap a button and then you get back to your TV screen, and you could type these next sort of commands using that interface, or you can use SSH session, or a bit of software to connect to your Pi with PuTTY or similar, and that's what I'll do now. So I'll just change the view. Okay, here we are in a terminal session, and you can see more clearly now. I've logged in at the top there as user Pi, and one difference in this version, RetroPie 3 Beta 3, is that the root login has been disabled, which is really on the whole a good idea. There's not really good practice to log in as root. When I say log in as root, I mean the user you log in as, like that, root, as opposed to Pi. And there's a few reasons for that. And for a start, if you log in as root all the time, you could easily do something and change a file that you're not really supposed to, you didn't want to, or you could change permissions quite easily on files that you create that then the user Pi can't read or can't execute. General misconfiguration is much easier if you log in as root. So it's much better practice to log in as Pi and only ever log in as root if you absolutely have to. Because most things, if a user Pi can't do a certain action, it says permission denied, just run it with the sudo command to do it as a sort of elevate your permissions temporarily, then run it, and you'll find that most of the time that would do the trick. So if you always used to log in as root, you'll find that you can't now. You can enable that. There's a command to set a password for that user, but unless you have to, I try to avoid that. Okay, now the paths on RetroPie Beta 3 are really similar to the previous version, Beta 2, that came out in April. So if you want to know about the pass and the configuration, check out my other video I've done about that one, about the Beta 2 version, because it's just the same. It's a very long, not exciting video, so don't be surprised if you don't get particularly interested watching that, but it does cover all the files and the configuration, how it works. What I'm going to do here really is just focus on the difference in the new version. So we had a look at Emulation Station earlier, and you can see the differences there, which are pretty minimal but still quite important. And now let's take a look at the RetroArch files, and most of the emulators are have libretro cores, which then uses RetroArch as the front end. So most of the emulation is often done through that. Now if we change directories, also that video I mentioned a minute ago talks about the basic Linux commands as well, so it could be worth a watch if you don't know why I'm typing what I'm typing. But we're just going to change the directory to the apt RetroPie directory. I'm just hitting tab to populate those paths much quicker. Okay, so we're in configs. Now in configs we've got the configs for all of the emulators, or at least all the ones that are kind of set up by default, if you like. And let's look at the Mega Drive one as an example. So if we go into Mega Drive, list of contents, and what we'll do is, well, first you can see retroarch.cfg here, which is the key file. It's the initial file. I'm not going to run over the config because that's in that other video, but you can see now we've got a new file called retroarch.cfg.rpdist. Now effectively that file is a system based configuration file. So if RetroPie was upgraded or new versions come out, then you may have manually edited your retroarch.cfg, and the update doesn't want to overwrite your changes, so it will put the system default updates in here. So you can always look in here to see what the latest or the current suggestion of configuration for this retroarch.cfg is, and then you can take the odd line out of there. So we'll just have a quick edit of that so you can see what I mean. Nano retroarch.cfg.rpdist. Okay, so here this is the default file. That's what it would look like if you haven't changed it at all. So you'd never really want to change this, because that's what the system's going to change to say, look, this is the default, so just leave that one alone. But if we edit retroarch.cfg, which is the active one, if you like, it's kind of odd actually, because this should initially match the distribution one. They should be the same, but it doesn't really matter that it's not, because it's not missing anything important. You could copy those other lines in here if you want. They related to shaders, but that's up to you if you want to do that. Yeah, so that's the RetroArch file, and you can see how that works with the emulators.cfg file here. If we edit that for the Mega Drive, you can see that the default emulator is libretro. If you see LR like that, it means libretro, which basically means it's going to run under RetroArch. LR Pico Drive, and there's LR Pico Drive, and it's going to run RetroArch, and then it's going to run the Pico Drive shared library, the core there, and then it's going to fire off apt RetroPie configs Mega Drive retroarch.cfg. So it will run this file here, or here rather. But again, this isn't the only Beta 3 element of this, is the fact that this file is now appearing. So that's what it's for. Don't edit it, let the system update it. If you get a new version, you can look in there to see what your RetroArch kind of should be if you muck that up. Okay, now earlier we did see in Emulation Station that when I was playing Sonic it wasn't moving, and that's because my D-pad wasn't registered correctly, and you can see why that is if you change directory to apt retropie / emulators retroarch configs, and you can see in here what I'm going to do. That's LS's list, and then if I put hyphen to show hidden files and a bit more human readable data, and then reverse time, I think, so I can see what's written most recently. So at the bottom, everything's June the 10th, which is the date of Beta 3, so nothing's changed on any of these except this one down here, which is when I've just run Emulation Station, and it created this file, which is really helpful. Most of the time that's going to be great, but I have got a problem with this one, which is why the D-pad didn't work. Now if I edit that with nano USB, just type the name of the file, and you can tell, like I say, with the one it's created, because the date stamp would be a couple of minutes ago from whenever you do it. Hit enter, Now it's populated all the data, and it's done, really useful buttons like hotkeys. So 6 is my select button, so you can see if I hold down select, that's enabling the other hot buttons like exit. So like 7, which means hold down select, tap 7, start, and it'll quit because the exit emulator button is start. It's number 7. Excuse me. Okay, but the problem with this file is up here near the top, we've got input up, right, and then down and left, which are my D buttons. But it's put here input up underscore BTN, and I haven't got an up button, I've got an up axis. So if I change BTN here to axis, right to axis, down to axis, I think you're getting the idea now. BTN axis. So I've got up, down, left, right logged as axis, and then if I save that, well, if I hit Control X, it says down the bottom, do you want to save it? So yes. What file name? Well, that one would do. And hit Enter. Now that's edited. Now if I go back in Emulation Station, it won't try to reconfigure it because it knows that I've kind of already done it. And I'll be able to move in Sonic. I'm not going to fire it back up, but I've done it earlier. It's fine. It works. It's the axis change. So if you find you go in a game and the buttons work but your D-pad doesn't, go in the file and see if that's the case. BTN to axis maybe. Certainly help me anyway. I've only got this controller. I have got a PlayStation 3 one somewhere, but I never use it. I just use a wired USB. Yeah, so that should explain that. Now separately, there are people on the forums who've got a problem sometimes with the controller because it seems to be a conflict, and when you delete a conflicting file, the problem seems to go away. So whilst I'm not 100% sure this is definitely what causes some conflicts, it's worth having a quick look here because by default, the RetroPie Beta 3 came with 3 files that kind of potentially had this conflict for me. Now I'm going to fire up that file again, this this USB file here, and you can see at the top it's got the device name here, USB, 2 axis, blah 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 blah. And I think it's quite important that that is unique in this directory, because if the autoconfig seems to find another file with the same identifier, it does seem to have a conflict, and if you get rid of one, the conflict goes away. So there's definitely something going on there. And you can test for this with a sort of search command. I'll show you an example of one. This command here, grep, which is like search in files, R is search from this directory and below, so recursive. This is the text you want to search for. So in my case, I've got a USB, well, here, USB, 2 axis. We saw that a minute ago. It was in the. So I'm not typing the file name. I'm typing that descriptor. I'll just fire that up again. I'm typing this input device name. It just happens to be the same as the file name here. So that's what I'm searching for. So if I quit out of that, get that command back. There we go. So I'm going to search for the device descriptor there, and this is the path that I want to start. It's a bit extreme going that far back. You could put this whole path because I only want to look in the current path, but I'm just going to do that anyway. So I'm looking for this text, and before I got rid of 2 files, I found 3 files in this directory having the same text. And I know the USB gamepad's got a similar issue, so I'll have a quick look there in a sec. Anyway, press enter, and as a quick look, and puts the answers in nice files. Now what you can see here is when we went into Emulation Station, it didn't just configure RetroArch by creating this file for us, it also went into Mupin64 Plus, and it's got input auto CFG and it's either put that in or it pre-existed in there, but I've got a feeling it might have put it in, maybe not. And N64, I mean I could tell if I check this beforehand, so I think it's automatically configured the N64 for your controller as well, and that could get extended to other emulators, no doubt. But this is the one I'm interested in. That's the one we're just looking at, configs USB 2 axis, and you can see it's got my descriptor, and that's the only file in this directory that's got that, so there's no conflict, so that's fine. But I know that this file maybe had a problem, so I'm going to quickly edit this. You'll see the logic here. So this is the text it's got in it. So I'm going to copy that text there as the device, quit out of that, and I'm going to do the search again, but I'm going to search for that new text, which is USB gamepad. Hopefully that's not in a million places. Yeah, here we go. So it's come back with two files: USB gamepad and RetroLink USB Sega Saturn Classic controller. Now, this is the one that's it's like a generic-ish joypad that looks like a SNES, made often by RetroLink, and these two have got the same descriptors. And quite often the buttons don't seem to react, is what people in the forums will say. And if you delete this file, everything seems fine. No doubt, if you deleted that file, it would be fine because it would just read that one instead. But if you get issues, try that search for that text to see if it's duplicated there, because that certainly seems to clarify things when I try it anyway. Hope that wasn't too bit sort of all over the place. But what I'm trying to say is, in Emulation Station, when it boots now and it asks you to put your controller in, previously, when that was just for Emulation Station's control, it now edits RetroArch directly. It creates this file, and yours may well be alright, but you saw with mine I had to edit it and put AXI in there instead of the buttons. Yeah, but we can see what's going on there. Now, separately, there are a few other changes. I'll just go into the setup script, and you've probably used this a lot before. Get back to the home directory, and then I'm going to change into RetroPie setup directory, and in here I'm going to run the setup script, sudo, and it's called RetroPie _ setup. Type that, hit enter. This is complaining I haven't got much space on my card, but that's just because I haven't expanded it yet, and you do that with the raspi config command, but I'm sure you know that. Anyway, yes, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're in here. Now, if you've written RetroPie version 3, beta 3 to your SD card from the image that's available on the Pet Rock Block website, you don't need to go and then do a binary-based installation or a source-based installation. To be honest, if you need to do one of those two, you'll know that you'll need to do it. And basically, I'm saying don't bother unless you really want to get the latest version. It's rarely worth it unless you're trying to test something specific. Excuse me. Right, then we've got setup, which is mainly what you want. It could well be the only bit that you come in here for, but for RetroPie Beta 3 you've got new experimental packages they've added in here. So if I hit number 4 and then hit enter, you've got some new entries here. And just looking down the list, we've got down the bottom here, Limelight's a new one. It's Game Streamer for Steam. I haven't tried that one out. Then you've got a few more LibRetro ones, which obviously run under RetroArch. You've got, let me check, LRTGB, that new Game Boy Color emulator. That I think it enables link play as well. There's DXX Rebirth somewhere. There we go. That's Descent and Descent 2 emulator. And there's a WonderSwan one that's added in now. That's there. Got a WonderSwan emulator. What else we got? There's I think LibRetro Med Gen. There it is. Neo Geo Pocket Color emulator. That's a new one. Get a few of those. And to install this, just press enter and it'll run through and do its thing. I haven't tried any of these out yet. UAE for ARM. Where's that one? There. So sort of a new Amiga emulator that's optimized for the Pi 2. I think there's been some good reviews on it, but I think there's still some development going on, and maybe I haven't tried it out, but it could be an improvement over the existing one. Give it a go. And yeah, I think there's a Game & Watch one here. So there's a few new ones added into the experimental area. Could be worth a go. Cancel out of that. And usefully, if we go and set up again, set up for the first time, you can see there's still the option here to configure your joypad to work with RetroArch, as has always been there. So that would effectively overwrite what the Emulation Station process did. The Emulation Station process for doing it is really, I guess, for helping people who don't want to do any of this text editing or even menus like this. Just avoid it and just go straight into the games. And they can do that with that Emulation Station process now. All they've got to do is copy the ROMs across, which is really easily done in Windows because Samba would be running. You can just double click and drop your ROMs in the right folder and you'll be away. So it makes it a lot easier. I know that also there have been tweaks to PS3, so you can install your if I had my PS3 controller now, I would connect it up with USB, do the install PS3 controller, follow the prompts, and then unplug the USB and choose pair with Bluetooth, and I'd probably be away. I'll do a video about that when I get a second, but I'm sure it's pretty straightforward. I know a lot of people are keen on PS3 controllers, and it has been tweaked in this version, so it's worth giving it a go if you've had a problem before. Install and pair it. And also right down the bottom there you've got your Xbox controller. I don't think any changes have happened there, but obviously you can still install that without any problem. Just see if there's anything else separate in the changelog. What else have we got? New experimentals, new logo that's everywhere. Improvements to DOSBox. It's an enhancement. There's a link I'll try to put in the video description. It's to allow DOS games to run from, or so you can launch your own custom shell scripts rather than going through the standard route. So it's a bit of a tweak and enhancement there. If you're into your DOS games, that would be a useful improvement. And generally, there's sort of various other fixes within this RetroPie Beta 3 setup that are improving the stability and reliability of all the scripts that are running in the background. So it's a really good release, and I think it's going to help a lot of people who may have had problems with controllers before. But hopefully that quirk that I showed you is limited maybe to just my type of controller or very few. And you know, if that's not an issue for anyone, it's going to be a lot easier now to play games straight off the bat. It'll make it a lot more accessible for everyone. If you've got any questions about this or any of the other videos, just ask in the comments. If it's been helpful, stick the thumbs up, because that really helps me know that, you know, it's worth me doing these videos to help you guys out. Yeah, speak to you soon. Thanks.